All right, welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your participation in what is really our final installment of our three-part Black Heritage Month Distinguished Speaker Lecture Series. My name is Carrie Bolin, and I have the distinct privilege in serving within the Division of Institutional Equity, Diversity, and Justice. And in recognition of this critical Heritage Month, we have worked to center Black experiences from Black viewpoints and to sort of bookend what has been an incredibly reflective and inspirational learning series is an outstanding knowledge facilitator, Dr. White. But before I share out his accomplishments, I'd like to pause in recognition of the stolen lands that we have the privilege at PCC to reside on. They belong to the community known as the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians of the Sheshakiwanga Village and Quiche Nation. I also want to acknowledge that much of what we know of this country today, including its culture, its economic growth, and development has been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their descendants who suffered the horror of the transatlantic trafficking, chattel slavery, and later on, dehumanization through segregation and Jim Crow laws. Let's pause. Thank you. Today's knowledge facilitator is an award winner in the fields of education, film, and literature. A career educator, Dr. White began educating California's youth and young adults in 2004. Presently, he is an African American Studies professor at San Jose City College, located in the heart of California's Silicon Valley. As an entrepreneur, Dr. White owns a multimedia company, Black Empower. The company focuses on education, empowerment, and equity. A proud HBCU alum and California Community College advocate, Dr. White is a co-founder of the Pipelines to Possibilities P2P program, connecting the two systems of higher education to increase faculty diversity. As a stark advocate for Black empowerment, Dr. White continues to serve in the intersections of education, public health, and community, advancing equity, inclusion, and social justice. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Khalid White.
Thank you all for having me this morning. Thank you to the Association of Black Employees, to Dr. Bowman, to Katina, our trustee that we have, and then for all of you, whether you're on faculty, staff, classified professionals, students, or anything in the middle of those. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to be here. It's my first time in Pasadena. I think I've been lied to, right? Because I was told it never rains in Southern California, right?
Yeah.
And that was raining and it's snowing. So,
sorry about that.
figure that one out, right? But, I mean, it's raining in the Bay Area as well, you know, snow in the mountains too, but I just didn't expect the same thing. But anyhow, again, just thank you all for having me. This has been a qualitative research project that I'm getting ready to share with you, and it's really been a labor of love. Although I started the project in 2021, the 2021-2022 academic year, it really started kind of formulating in my mind and in my heart like 2018. Okay, 2018 or fall of 2018, a friend of mine who was unfortunately killed by the police. Okay? Unarmed, 5 officers involved, none charged, nobody went to jail behind his death. And his death kind of, it shocked me, because it was a friend of mine that I went to college with, used to, just like you all, friends, eating at the lunch table, or eating at the lunchroom, and playing basketball together, all these different types of things. And his daughter was the same age as my oldest daughter. So it really just hit home. But in addition to just that loss, one day I was teaching in the classroom, and it just hit me. I started crying. Just like I'm talking to you, then all of a sudden I don't know what happened. Just something just snapped, and it hit me. So, part of this research is I don't want to say just as a Black faculty or Black educator, but just as a person. Can you separate what happens on this campus from the things that happen outside of the campus? Can you compartmentalize that? It's hard to do that sometimes. It's hard for me to do that because my friend wasn't killed on the campus, he was killed in the street. But just the impact of that caught me on the campus. So I couldn't really separate the personal from the professional, right? It's tough for us to do that. So fast forward to 2020. And we have the racial reckoning, as they call it, or as they, we're going through a pandemic. The reason why we're wearing the masks right now. I know some people are maskless, and that's fine. I just came off the airplane, so I don't know who sneezed and coughed. That's why I have the mask. Right? I'm trying to keep everybody in here safe.
Thank you.
Right? Well, I don't know. You sneeze on in aisle 14, by the time it reaches aisle 28, and then in row 1, we all got sick. So, anyway, so I'm trying to keep everybody safe as best as possible, even though it's hot. I'm doing that. But anyway, I forgot my point. You threw me on.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I have that effect.
So, 2020, right? We're going through, in my opinion, a quadruple pandemic, right? The health crisis, that got turned into an economic crisis. That got turned into a racial crisis with the deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, the shooting of Jacob Blake, and others, right? And then on top of that, we had wildfires and hurricanes and everything else that hit. So, right, 4 different calamities all at the same time. Okay? So, from 2018, and then fast forward to 2020, now 2021, 2022, this is all kind of where this comes from for me. Okay, so I'm trying to set the context for you all so you understand where I'm coming from. Okay? How many people are unfamiliar with the term the ivory tower? Anybody that's a new term to? Don't feel shy. Because I asked this question to some other people, and everybody raised their hand in the room. So you're not alone. We'll talk a little bit about what that means, okay? In just a second. So, as Dr. Bowler mentioned, I'm African American Studies professor. I've been the only African American Studies professor on my campus since 2008. Kind of sad, if you ask me. But, that's kind of the game, unfortunately. I don't take my role lightly as an educator, but specifically as a black educator. It's different. Race colors everything in America. So, yes, I'm an educator, and I teach everybody, but I'm also a black educator. And a lot of our students, young people, adults, what have you, they haven't had a black educator, specifically black male. So I don't take that role lightly at all. That's, something I really cherish and value. Teaching African American studies and ethnic studies, we focus on culture, we focus on community, we focus on counter narratives. The perspective of people of color, the perspective of African American people, of people of African descent, and tell some of those stories. So those are some of the tools that I take with me into spaces like this, Pasadena Community College, UCLA, San Jose State, San Jose City, wherever ivory tower where I go, I kind of bring some of those tools with me. Okay? All right, so as I mentioned, this research emerges from calamity, from death, from disease, from destruction of 2020, right? Everybody was around in 2020? You sure? Just making sure. Okay. No, everybody was around. And thank God we got through it. We survived 2020, because that wasn't easy. Mentally, emotionally, physically, relationally, right? Some people I had another baby in 2020. Couldn't get any help. Couldn't be in the hospital. Couldn't be, it was scary. I was scared to death in 2020, to be honest with you. Because there was so much unknown, right? But this emerged from the craziness of 2020. Now, how many of you have thought about, you've written it down, thought about it in your mind, in your heart? What are the pertinent issues that are affecting black student and black student success? Is that a topic of discussion on campus? Excellent. I hope so. I really hope so. What are some of the pertinent issues affecting black staff and black faculty? Now, I know this is the Association of Black Faculty Group, so you all may talk about that. But outside of the group, what are some of the issues that affect black faculty, staff, classified professionals? Is that something that's being talked about on this campus, being discussed on this campus? Maybe not as often as student success. I see some, maybe you don't have to raise your hand. I know there's some people at high level and you can just blink. If you blink, then know there's some powerful people in this room. Because I can tell you on my campus, that's not really a discussion, a topic of discussion. What black faculty, staff, and classified professionals experience, that goes under the rug. It's almost like out of sight, out of mind. Okay? Has your campus or your district done any focus groups on what the experiences of black faculty and staff have been in the last couple of years? Hopefully you have. Again, you can just blink if you haven't. And I hope that you have. I hope Pasadena City College, I feel that you all are a progressive college, right? Based on the speakers that have come this week, or this month, excuse me. And then, once we get that information, how do we prioritize it and operationalize this data so your institution can help close these equity gaps? Because it's one thing to grab that information, but what do we do with it once we have it? Okay? It's one thing to accumulate resources, dollars and cents, and put it in the bank, and it looks great. But what do we do to kind of make that, a tool, and a tool for our success, a tool to close these equity gaps? So, equity, inclusion, and belonging. You all have heard that acronym DEIB and IEB and DEIB and J, and right? Specifically coming out of 2020, those things got heightened in terms of the use of those acronyms. Okay? What do those things mean? Who can help me? What is equity? You don't have to give the textbook opinion, just your opinion. What is equity? You might have an idea? What does it mean to you?
Appropriate supports for the individual.
Appropriate supports for the individual or the group. Right? I'll take that. Anybody else? What's equity mean to you? Nobody expected to have questions asked to them today. I see it. Please tell me your name.
Quay.
Quay.
Corrective justice.
Corrective justice. Okay. I like that. Corrective justice. It's not just justice, but we're going to correct some of the things that may have happened in the past. Right some wrongs, perhaps? Okay. Excellent. Inclusion. What does inclusion mean to you all? What does it mean to you? Pardon?
Everybody's welcome at the table.
Your name?
Marilyn Johnson.
Marilyn Johnson. Everybody's welcome at the table, right? Everybody can eat together at this table. We're all included. It's not okay, student services over here and student affairs over there, and we don't like them and they don't like us. Okay? Everybody at the table. And then this idea of belonging. They go together, inclusion and belonging. Any ideas on that? Yes, sir. Your name, please?
My name is Chidi.
Chidi.
For me, belonging is not just having a seat at the table, actually being a part of like this intimate conversation and land in the process.
Okay. Not just having a seat, you can be at the table, but how do I implement what's getting ready to happen at this table? Decisions that are happening at this table. Is that kind of? All right. Thank you. So, thank you all. I'll go back to the other slide. So these key terms, these are what some of the textbook definitions of them are, right? How do we define what equity is and what inclusion and belonging is? Okay? By textbook. Let me also say this, particularly from the perspective of African American history, African American studies. Inclusion and belonging, racial equity, is something that black people have been searching for on these shores since 1619. It's not new. It's not just because 2020 occurred. This is something that's been a historical search, a historical journey, historical longing, right? Because we weren't expected to be included or to belong or to have a seat at the table and be able to make decisions. Okay? So these are terms that have been thrown around and used more recently, yes, because of what happened in 2020 and what have you, but this is not new information, or this is not a new feeling, this is not a new desire to be included and to belong. Right? So, back to this slide. Over the course of the 2021 academic year, I've researched, did some qualitative research to get the answers to some of those questions I asked. What are the experiences of black students on my campus and then our sister campus in San Jose? What have been some of their recommendations as to what would make them feel more included and to belong and that type of thing? So I surveyed 15 black students, across the 2 campuses in our district. But I also surveyed and get responses from 35 professionals up and down the state. So some in the community colleges, some in the some in the CSU system, some in the UCs, so forth and so on. I wanted to get their experiences, right? To get their recommendations. And they eventually offered 7 pages of recommendations, of strategies, of solutions to increase campuses' racial equity, inclusion, and belonging. So it's not like me telling you this is what you should do. It's the collective giving you some ideas on what you should and shouldn't do, and some things to change, some things to look out for. And give me 1 second. Should have had this out already. It ended up culminating in this, what we call a workbook, right? How many of you all recall, like, 2nd, 3rd grade used to have workbooks that you could write in and put answers and notes in? So this is a workbook that, you can write in and answer it, and it asks some of these questions. But it also, again, 7 different pages of recommendations for how to take your campus from anti-black to anti-racist, okay? So, is that an easy thing to do? Not at all. It hasn't been since 1619, right? We're still a work in progress on these issues. And with the idea of 1619 in mind, we'll get to that in just 1 second, but inclusion and belonging is just as important for the staff, the faculty, and the classified professionals as it is for your students. Just as important for you all as professionals as it is for your students. As a matter of fact, your inclusion begets the student success that you want to espouse in your class, or have in your counseling spaces, or have on your athletic teams, right? Your wellness leads to the wellness of the students, okay? So, these are some things that were found during this research, okay? Now, anybody know the first university in the United States?
Harvard.
Who said it? Is it Orion?
Orne.
Orne, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Orne. Harvard University. That's the first university in America?
According to my research,
Does
yes.
anybody know that? Can anybody verify that? Can anyone verify? Orne, can you come here, please?
Can you repeat the question, Dr.
What
White?
was the oldest university in the United States? The first and oldest?
Harvard, she's correct.
Or come bearing gifts, right? But Orne, that's a tool for you to use in your dissertation and in your work.
Sure.
All right. This was a headline from an article that I just read maybe last week. Students to support student success, faculty and campus leaders, all of you all in this, in this room, need to feel a sense of belonging. One leads to the other. Okay? Think about this, the ivory tower. You said you didn't know what the ivory tower meant. That's fine. It's a common phrase used to refer to as, refer to universities and colleges. Pasadena City College, Cal State LA, California, Channel Islands, all the universities and that type of, they fall under this umbrella, right? And in the ivory tower, it's like a utopian world. What exists on the outside doesn't affect what happens here. Now, is that true or false? All right. Again, it's hard for us to compartmentalize. Okay, I can just leave all my problems outside this door when I pull up to the campus in the morning. It's very tough to do so. But founded in 1636 in the Boston, Massachusetts area, As Ornay mentioned, Harvard University is the first ivory tower, the first and oldest university, and really the most prestigious university in the world now. Right? Pasadena City College, whether you know it or not, looks up to Harvard and emulates Harvard. To some degree, because Harvard set the foundation, the blueprint for what the ivory tower, for what institutions of higher ed is supposed to be. I went to a historically black college university. We emulate the ivory tower as well. Community colleges emulate the ivory tower. CSUs, UC, so forth and so on, emulate, Harvard University. We're all kind of chasing that, that blueprint that they set. But again, from the perspective of the counter narrative, or did they tell you that Harvard University, they owned slaves, or they had, slaves and that type of thing at Harvard University? So, or even though you're studying Harvard University, historically you couldn't have attended as a black person, and then especially as a woman. They didn't allow either. No, wait a second, let me take it back. You could be on the campus, serving food and sweeping up and taking care of people. All right? So, as beautiful as the Harvard University story is, if you're looking at it from the perspective of black people, historically, the historical perspective, it didn't really start off that great. If you're looking at it from the perspective of the indigenous or women, it didn't start off that great too. Their history's not been the greatest, right? They have a black female president now, or getting ready to elect her in after this semester, June of 2023, I believe. So they're trying to change their history. However, the foundation was set, okay? So they established, or helped to establish, oppression, institutional discrimination, exclusion, exploitation, the anti-black racism that we find today in higher ed. They helped to start that. I'm not trying to point fingers at them and blame them. I'm not saying that. But if you lay the foundation, which they did, that's what the foundation involves. Now, I don't often tell people this because people make a big deal out of it, and it embarrasses me, but I went to Harvard University. I'm a Harvard alum as well. When I got to the campus the second day, I got lost on the campus on purpose to try to find my way around. Guess who asked me if I belonged on the campus? Do you belong here? 4 or 5 officers followed me and kind of cornered me in the corner. And what are you doing on campus? Do you belong here? So inclusion and belonging has been something, again, that we are trying to find out day in and day out. And so that's another reason I don't like talking about it is because I had a very negative experience there. Very racial experience, it just wasn't good. It wasn't good, but it looks good on a resume, right? People, oh, really? Wow. You don't seem like the Harvard type. I don't. They asked me if I belong. I guess I don't, That's fine. But I'm not telling you what I've read or what I've heard. I'm telling you what I know from experience. I'm telling you what I know from experience of working at these community colleges and at these state universities. It's not easy as a black educator. It's not. It's different. It's a different experience for us. So, the students that I interviewed and also these individual professors that I interviewed, they're going to share with you some of these differences, some of these unique experiences, okay? Any questions before we take to the next step? Is it making sense?
Yes.
I hope so.
Question.
Yes.
How long were you at Harvard?
It was an accelerated program, a little over a year and a half, something like that. Enough to know that I didn't want to stay there. Right? That winter. No, thank you. Interestingly enough, when I was there, reminiscing now, this was a while ago, I was there like in 03, 04. The Patriots won the Super Bowl that year. You should have seen how they tore the city up. Flipping over cars, setting stuff on fire, in the snow, stomping on stuff. Now, mind you, it was primarily white people doing this. No police involvement, none of that. I'm sitting there watching it like, I can't believe this. Different experiences based upon race. Yep. Thank you. See half the room left.
It's 1 o'clock. It's not you. It's not you.
I'm just playing. Dr. Bowler already let me know. So I'm trying not to take it personal. But the important people stayed. That's what really matters. No, but thank you all for your eyes and your ears, your attention. I just want to open the floor just for a couple minutes. I know we're a little bit over the 1 o'clock hour, but any comments or questions that you may have based on what you've seen and heard here. I don't know who had their hand up first, but
No, ladies first. Go ahead, Dr. Lopez.
Dr. Lopez.
Dr. Lopez.
Okay.
I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was very factual, and would love to show it to a lot of my colleagues
Thank
and
you.
students.
Thank you. Yes. I saw it.
I have a question.
Yes, okay.
Do you believe that, in terms of representation, that the representation within the community, in terms of the African American population, should that mirror the representation on the campus, in terms of the faculty, in terms of the students? Because, we've had a real challenge with increasing our African American enrollment here at PCC, and a lot of people have told me directly that what I'm trying to pursue or achieve, it's impossible. It's impossible to get us to that number that we see in the community. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that that's a good excuse for not doing it. That's an excuse. If that was a priority to have the faculty mirror the student or the student body, or the faculty to mirror the community, if that was a priority for campuses, they would find a way to do it. Also, on top of that, in specific with black faculty raised the level and student success metrics for all students. So it's not just black students get the benefit of having a black faculty member, black teacher, black counselor, black administrator, black classified professional. That has a ripple effect for students of all colors and all backgrounds and that type of thing. So if that was a priority, that was an institutional goal, campuses would find a way to do that. The organization that I'm a part of, Pipelines to Possibilities, which Dr. Bowler mentioned in my introduction, we're trying to increase the number of black faculty in the California Community College system by doing some non-conventional means, really focusing on going to the historically black colleges and recruiting from there. That's one way that we can influence the number. But the vision for success that the state chancellor outlined, and that being one of the priorities, was to diversify the faculty population. It looks good on paper. It's a noble goal. But are we just talking about it, or are we actually putting rubber to the road? So hopefully that answers your question.
And I think when you say diversity, a lot of people have all these other categories,
Definitely.
and there seems never to be a focus of ethnic diversity,
Yep.
is what we're really speaking at.
Okay.
And I think that's where you find the difficulty as a person saying, okay, is this just a problem that I see?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the institution doesn't really see it as an issue.
I agree. Diversity is a fact. Look around the room. Diverse group of people in the room. That's definitely. Racial equity, inclusion, belonging is something altogether different.
Yep.
And that's what the aim should be. So I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. Anyway, yes, I agree. Thank you for bringing that point up. You had your hand up?
Yes, I was just gonna, I'm gonna stand up. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Carmen Stevens. I'm a counseling faculty serving students with disabilities. And this video, I want to thank you so much for presenting it, sharing it, creating it, it being put in your heart to share it, because it spoke directly to me. Like, I felt it in my spirit. This needs to be shared everywhere. Because I think no matter if the person looks like me or doesn't, to understand that this is the way you feel is huge. Because I'll just give 2 quick testimonials and then I'll be done. Being a Black faculty member serving students with disabilities, I am the only one. At every college I've been at, I've been the only one. I remember my first experience of knowing I was important. Don't let me get emotional, but my first experience of knowing I was important is when I was at one particular college and a student from across the room, so I was back behind the desk with everybody else. So if you back behind the desk, that means you work, right? That means you're an employee. This young man literally screamed and started jogging towards me, ran up and gave me a hug. So I'm like, y'all, I was gonna run. I thought something was popping off. But then I realized he was like, happy to see me because it was the first person he saw that looked like me and him. And so as soon as he finished hugging me, because I was like, ooh, gotta get up off me. As soon as he finished hugging me, he said, I want an appointment with her. Didn't know I was a faculty member. He didn't know what I did there, how I did it. He would just like let her be in the meeting with me. From then on, I met with him until I left that particular college. Make my way to PCC, second and last testimony I'll give. In my division where I'm at, it's about 85 plus, keep hiring more people. I was the only Black, well still am, the only Black faculty, but the only Black person in my division. So when we would go to meetings and we'd be in rooms like twice this size, I would be the only person representing like the issue, the matter, or having to say something, and people would look at you like you had boo-boo on your face. They'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, what's the problem? Oh, we're bringing up that again. Like, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And I know there's some of my colleagues here that know that feeling. So to see this video, it spoke to it. It spoke to exactly how you feel when different things come up. And I'm just so happy that there was so many people here to be able to hear that and see that and to understand, at least from the video's perspective of what's happening for faculty and for staff, because you do get worn out. There's some days when you don't want to come to college and smile. Y'all know I always got a smile on my face. But it's really hard to always do that and know you have to do that even when you're not working, even on the weekends when students are emailing you, even when you're taking students to conferences. That's just a lot. And so I just want to say this is really important and huge. So thank you.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate that. And thank you. Yes. Dr. Lopez, I see your hand up again, or somebody else?
I didn't know somebody had to answer mine. Okay, so I have a question. The video talked about battle fatigue, and it talked about some other concepts that we experience. What advice would you give to Black women, because we don't get to have battle fatigue, and we don't get to be depressed, and we don't get to be all those things because we have to hold everything together?
That's true.
Yep, it is.
That's true. What advice would I give to Black women specifically? It's tough to give advice to Black women. I'm not a Black woman myself. So let me just put that out there.
Okay, I'll make it a little easier for you. Now, what advice would you give us? What advice would you give our colleagues when they say, oh, I'm so tired, I'm so this, I'm so whatever? We don't get to have those feelings.
Sure. I would say this, that for Black women in specific, you do and should be allowed to have those. You should be. You should be allowed to have that. You should be allowed to feel that. I would start there. Secondly, I think that it would be in the campuses, any campuses, best intentions if they want to move the campus forward, to be able to hear from the perspective of Black women. For one reason, because women, Black or otherwise, are the nurturers of these young people. Secondly, if we're talking about who is an unsung voice black women professionals, but also black female students. How often do we hear from black female students in terms of their success? You, at one point, were a black female student,
Here.
but here. Thirdly, I would say the need for listening to black female, black women in specific, is because black young women are going to be the next generation of leadership in the black community. That's my opinion. Now, I'm also saying this because I'm raising 2 black women. I'm trying to nurture 2 black women myself. So I'm just looking out for my daughters, my niece, etc., on the things that they'll have to endure. I don't understand that firsthand. I'm not female. However, I see it from mom, grandma, aunties, them, the types of things that they will have to go through and experience. And if we want to create a better black community, it's going to have to start with the women. Because they create women and they create men.
So Dr.
They create leaders and they create the next generation of people who will lead. Hopefully that answers your question.
So Dr. Malvo was here the other day.
That's my take on it.
Right? And she said that one of the things that we need to do is check in with each other
Yep.
on business matters or am I crazy? And then start making notes to find out if it's institutional or personal.
Okay.
Check in with each other
Okay.
to ask each other, am I crazy or is it soundness to what I'm feeling about the micro or macro?
And I think we kind of do that because I'm looking at the room
Yeah.
and I'm seeing all the ones who come to the Black Student Success Center
Yes.
to recharge, and people don't know about that.
Ooh, so
I'm
good.
looking all around, and I can see my sisters, because we don't have a place. We have to create a place, and then we have to support one another. And then when you tell somebody, it falls on deaf ears. So that's why we support one another. It wasn't
Thank you.
that was just a comment, sorry.
No, and you know what? The first place that I went to try to get some help, because I couldn't find this place specifically, was the Black Success Center. I saw the Kente curtains up. It drew me in like this is a place where somebody could help me. Nobody was in there at the time, unfortunately. But I ended up finding it, but long story short, the people on the wall, the imagery, it meant something. And it meant this, okay, for me, this is a safe space. And I think I even saw, this is a safe space written on one of the poster
Yeah, and you
things.
know, those curtains were bought by Black women, made by Black women, put up by Black women. That was not something that the institution paid for. The artwork and artifacts that are in there, again, Black women.
Well, thank you and the Black women on this campus for what you all do. Thank you. So, 4 hands, whatever.
Yes.
4 tonight? Okay, then how about trustee?
Yeah, so in regards to the documentary, I wanna kind of piggyback on what Carmen, Dr. Stevens mentioned. It was really good to kind of see that quantified in that way. And so, the reason why I knew about Harvard is because actually my dissertation is on the experiences of Black women in the California community colleges.
Yep.
Because kind of similar to Dr. Lopez, it is like this kind of unicorn that's off in the corner of in regards to our statewide organizations, Black women are specifically left out. So I just want to validate what both of y'all have said. It's been I really enjoyed overall my time being here in this space, and I came from 4 years, so it's a different ball game, I would say, here. But I think sometimes you do need that validation because you're not, you know, you might have, I try not to use the term imposterism because I found out that that was actually not created by people of color, but it's used by us. So it's just sometimes you just have that, like, God, like, is it just me? I didn't get to go to the Dr. Mavo's talk on Friday, but sometimes you do need that validation of like, this happened, like, am I tripping, or, you know, do I belong here? Did I earn the right to be here? Like, you know what I mean? There's always this kind of like internal voice sometimes that you know you're doing fine, you know you're doing well. You may compare yourself to our, you know, non-Black colleagues and, you know, working longer times and seeing your kid before they go to bed. But still, like, am I doing enough? And so I just wanted to validate what they both are saying and thank Dr. Lopez, because I do sometimes, now I'm at a satellite area, so I don't know where am I gonna go when I need that, but like, you know, just wanted to validate what they were saying and just show appreciation for the film because, you know, I wish it was something that like could be like required viewing for, you know, for all of our colleagues. It would be wonderful.
Yeah, I definitely really appreciate your presentation and the film. I had maybe a different thought with when the sister was speaking about trauma being held in the Black community. It occurred to me that maybe trauma's on both sides from this history of slavery and oppression and Jim Crow. There's trauma on the Black side, and maybe trauma on that other side that's perpetuating this hatred and fear that's going.
That's a good point. There's two sides of the trauma coin, kind of, if I hear you correctly. There may be some truth to that. I'm not the psychologist, that's why I asked her to, you know, to talk about that. But there probably is some truth to that, and maybe one of our counselors or our clinicians here could speak to that a little bit more, but thank you for pointing it out. And a lot of us are dealing with trauma. 2020 was a lot of trauma. Dr. Lopez, I saw your hand, and you don't have to hide it.
Well, because I'm a counselor. You said Black counselor, so I have to be.
Okay, help me.
I agree with you that there is trauma on both sides. However, one side of that trauma has privilege to go with it, and one side of that trauma has generations of wealth stored up, generations of this, that, and the other, and the other side does not. We just have trauma. So I think there is definitely a difference, and I really need to question the trauma aspect on that side. I haven't really mulled it over, but in my heart, I feel like there isn't trauma on both sides. I mean, I can't see how you could be cruel. So I'm that person that I can't be cruel and not have that be traumatic for me. But we're talking about generations of learned cruelty. So I don't know that is trauma at this point. I think it's status quo at this point. Counseling perspective.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that perspective. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I have another question.
Yes.
I'm just curious for the both the video and I know you mentioned like some of the research you did. Is there a way for us to access that?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Can I share this slide too? Oh, no, that's not it. How do we use this and access this at our campus to make it like a tool, right? That's the goal. I mean, obviously, I want to have the same impact that the Black Panther had on the community, right?
Yep.
Probably not going to happen because, you know, it's for different reasons. But the same way that the Black Panther movie, the first one, brought everybody together, and everybody was doing that everywhere you went around there, I want to have that same impact. But on the college campuses, how do we utilize that as tools and that type of thing? So that's a question I would like to pose to you all at Pasadena City College. It's great to have a presentation like this, but how do we take it to those that make decisions and make policy or create, you know, the hiring, the EEOs and people of that magnitude on our campus, and I'm sure some of you are in this room. So that's a next step thing moving forward then. You could also, I mean, I passed out one of the books, or I gave Orion one of the books, but you can find the, you know, excuse me, or Renee. I know Orion, so excuse me. Or Renee. I'm sorry. People mess my name up all the time, I hate it. So I apologize for that, right? I mean, you can find the book, and the book goes into greater detail in terms of how it can be utilized and that type of thing too. So, you know, you can find the book on Amazon. You can use the little scan me thingamajig. I have a couple with me, but, you know, I'm not trying to sell you all. I'm trying to, how do we take this collectively and turn this into something that moves the needle for Pasadena City College, community colleges, CSUs, UCs? Who can you put this in front of to change their perspective, right? And I don't know who that is. And maybe some of those people are in this room. But that's the ultimate goal, you know? That is the goal. That's my goal. Not only just to explain our, for lack of a better word, traumas. And now that we know them, we can identify them, how do we start to change things for black students, black staff, black faculty, etc.? So, I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to your interpretations. I'm hoping that you may, not to put everybody on the spot and have to give you one more thing to do, but I'm hoping you could point me in some of those directions throughout not only Pasadena, but whoever else you know in terms of your colleagues, your contacts. That'll be helpful. But until that happens, thank you. Thank you for having me.